Now, more than a decade later, why run again?
I have a passion for it. I follow very closely what happens on the national scene, on the state scene, and how it affects the local scene. We're all very connected. The other thing is realization that the American economy is not a blank checkbook, where if we owe more money, well, we just print more money. What happens is that the price of that dollar goes down, your groceries go up, and your bills go up in value. And that's called inflation. We have to stop that. The national budget, more than 60% of it is Medicare, Medicaid, and all these other services that don't even come in before we have to take care of defense and the running of the government and other things that are very important. If we don't take that under control, as it has been almost shrunk every year, Social Security shrinks, and less of it is going to be available to you and others when we're ready for retirement. And I think that it's important that we start looking at it realistically, how we're going to, if we want to save it, how we're going to save it.
So let's talk about District 23.
Okay.
What has your strategy been to campaign this go around with just how big and diverse this district is? And how has the district changed since you last served?
You know, I think the only thing that has changed in the district is that there are a lot more younger people that don't remember me. But there are a lot of people that do vote that do remember me, and they remember what has gone on. I got in very late, and as a consequence, many of my old supporters, they had been committed to somebody else. So doing this on my own, with the passion that I have, I'm looking at the main areas where I need their votes. And hopefully it'll bleed on to the other smaller areas. I'm really the best solution for this district.
Why do you say that?
Because I've got the experience. I have the character. I have the integrity. And I have the maturity, political maturity, in order to get the job done for the district.
A lot of the other candidates have called for the resignation of Tony Gonzalez.
And so have I. And so have I. And I'm going to tell you, as a businessman and my prior work in banks and banking, if you have a chief or a president that makes sexual advances to an employee, he's fired. And we did that. And on top of that, you have to indemnify the person who was injured or harmed in that way. That's the way business runs. You don't cross that line, especially if you're talking about a subordinate. And that is a very, very dangerous thing. And quite frankly, I think it speaks very ill of his character if he is, number one, not going to fess up to it, and number two, not realize that he very severely crossed the line.
What have you been hearing from voters or constituents about what they want out of a congressman?
They want a lot of their issues taken care of, number one. And here's a big difference, because having been there, there's a big difference between going to the elected officials of a county and listening to them, and then going to the people and listening to them. And I have pledged everywhere I go that I am their lawyer or their congressman, and I'm going to represent them. Because in many other areas, you have the leaders of that county or that municipality that don't really guide things in the right direction, and you've got to be able to hear the complaints. That doesn't mean that you're going to say, well, and as an example, let's say somebody wants ice cream at every meal and for every meal. Your leadership will tell you, well, you know what, I'm going to convince you that the best thing for you is to have your protein, your vegetables, your fruits, and your starches. And then we can have ice cream. That's what a leader does. A leader goes out there and says, I'm going to give you everything you want. No, A leader goes out there, listens, and makes sure that if it's okay with the leader and agrees with the leader, fine. But if there is some sort of a disagreement there, you try and convince them and lead them in the right direction.
You say you got into the race late. When did you get in?
The last day of registration, December 8th.
Was there a final straw? Was it something you had been thinking about?
I write op-eds and I get them distributed, published by a group in Washington area. And I got a call in mid to late November saying that the hearing was that Tony was in deep, deep trouble. And they thought that I should get in. And I thought about it, consulted it with my wife. And after discussion, she said, go for it. And that's what I did. I had to resign my post with the state Republican Executive Committee and as a precinct chair and as a member of various Republican clubs that I'm involved with as director, on one of them where I served as president. And I'm all in. I'm all in.
If you make it past this primary, possibly a runoff, come November, do you think you could beat a Democrat?
I know, I can.
Why?
Because when I won against Ciro Rodriguez, it was a teeter-totter district. It could have moved one way or the other, and I won it. But in 2012, they made it more Democratic. They changed it. That's how I lost to Pete Gallegos. Since then, and especially after the redistricting that was done several months ago, this district is now more Republican than it is by about 7 points, more Republican than it is Democrat. The only problem is that it's still pretty close. And I warn the people of the 23rd Congressional District that if they make the wrong choice, they're going to expose this district to a takeover from the Democrats. And I'm speaking now to the national Republicans and the Texas Republicans. It's that dangerous.
Last question I have for you. What does the next week look like for you?
Very active.
Yeah.
I'll probably lose weight.
Any part of the district you'll be focusing on?
San Antonio. I think that San Antonio, like I said, it's the big bear, is Bexar County. There are a lot of voters out there that haven't voted yet, a lot of voters that need to know what's really at play and what is important. And remember, I'm struggling against sort of people that have had their leg up for a while and an ability to win this thing. So it's going to be difficult. I'm not, making any false assumptions here. It is, but it is doable still.